Today's horror story is written by Glitter Pickle 420. I lived here for 15 years now. I'd leave if I could, but I'm not sure what would happen if I did. It was built in the 1850s, and I was drawn in by the original details. The hand-carved wood trim and the gaslight on the banister of the grand staircase sold the house to me before the agent could even try. Once we moved in, we started working on fixing little things and hiring contractors for the bigger jobs. The home inspection went surprisingly well for such an old home. Most of the work that was needed was in the old stone-walled basement. The inspector pointed out that there was a well and a cistern in the basement. He mentioned that the well was about 15 feet deep to the water line, and he had no real way of knowing how deep the water was. But it didn't matter anyways. We were going to put a floor over it and make the section a closet or something to avoid any accidents. The cistern was about 4 foot by 10 foot and somewhere around 4 feet deep. It was made from brick and still had pipes leading into it, but it had been disconnected almost 100 years ago when the original owners installed indoor plumbing. The inspector said it was bone dry and likely not to cause me any issues, but it would be expensive to remove. Shortly after moving in, we hired a local handyman, Ted, to cover the well and fix a few other issues in the basement. He was the first to go missing. I remember it well. I felt sick and decided to leave work early. I came home and the house had a damp smell about it, like wet lumber mixed with old dirt. I shouted down the steps to see if Ted was still working in the basement. No response. I didn't suspect anything. I thought I might be getting ripped off by a contractor taking longer breaks than he should. But that was the worst thing it could be. But when I went downstairs, I immediately knew something was wrong. The cistern was full of water, and the floor between the well and the cistern was wet. It looked like a wet blanket had been pulled across the floor down into the well. I thought Ted had fallen down the well. I called 911 and they spent 2 days looking for him. He wasn't in the well, and he never went home. Suddenly, I was a suspect in a homicide. My story checked out and I was never formally charged, but that didn't mean things didn't change. Everyone in town thought I was a murderer. I eventually lost my job and had threats against me and my family. But this was just the start of my problems. 6 months later, a friend of my son's also went missing. He told his parents he was walking to meet some other kids at the park. The last time he was seen alive was around 10 in the morning on my security camera. The last few seconds of the video had him walking around the side of the house and out of sight. The day he went missing, the cistern was full again. But we had a massive thunderstorm in the afternoon with lots of rain. To be truthful, that night I prayed that it was just a fluke that 2 people had gone missing on the same day the cistern filled, more than I did for the kids' safe return. The missing boy really hurt my family. The town thought I had done it. I was pegged a killer. Rumors flew that I was a serial killer and I was throwing bodies in the well to hide them. It wasn't long after that my wife decided to leave. The stress was too much for her. Once the divorce was finalized, I decided to sell the house and move as far away as I could. That was the night I met him. I was in the basement looking for moving boxes when I heard running water. I went into the back room and the cistern was filling through one of the old pipes. I looked up from the water and saw him for the first time. He was dripping wet and crawling up from the well. He moved in quick, twitchy movements. As I got closer, I realized that this was a person at one time. Hunched over, he stood about 6.5 feet tall. Upright, he must have been 7 feet or more. His arms were long and spindly, ending in sharp pointed bones protruding from his decaying skin, clicking on the floor as he walked towards me. His body was a pale gray, and the rotting, waterlogged flesh was falling off as he moved towards me. As he got closer, his bottom jaw split, opening outwards as well as down, exposing rows of teeth and a low growl. His eyes, just sockets, but he reacted to light and movements as if he could see. "We can make this arrangement work, you and I. I can offer you things no mortal could dream of. dimensions beyond anything you could comprehend. Rifts where you are king, and the things you keep locked away in your mind will all come to be. Your very own world to rule, where even death cannot stop you, and you wield absolute power. But I need a little help from you first. I suggest you take this offer without much fuss. The other options are not so kind. I don't remember much after that. That was 15 years ago. Since then, I've been feeding him, usually twice a year. I don't like it. I don't want to do it. But in a strange way, we've become closer as I get pushed further away from society. I've never been charged with murder, but the town knows something isn't right in my house. He's my only companion now. I almost wish he would come more often. I hunt all across the country. Problem is, he only feeds on the living. I've become numb to it at this point. I try to pick offerings that no one will miss, the lowest of the low. But the more he feeds, the more power he lends me, and the better I get at hunting. But it's changing me as well. Eventually, when he's strong enough, I believe that he will uphold his end of the bargain, and we will rule together. You know, maybe I don't want to leave after all. Don't shoot the messenger. Apparently there's more to this story. I didn't know it at the time. You can scarcely blame me. At any rate, be sure to keep an eye on GlitterPickle420 on Reddit for updates as the story develops. Just be careful not to draw from that well too often. And thank you for listening. You can handle another horror story, right? I remember it well. Dun-dun-tsh.